Hello, it's Bailey and welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to do the mid-year book freakout. This is like a staple tag on BookTube in which we can discuss how my reading year has been going so far, and kind of there is some anticipatory questions as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. The very first question is the ever looming, what is the best book you have read so far this year? And I was actually a little bit surprised when I went through my spreadsheet to see what I had actually rated the highest. I do use the CAWPILE rating system, and so the highest rated thing I have so far this year is Now Is Not the Time to Panic by Kevin Wilson. This was a Shelf This Book Club choice this year. Ruby from Ruby Red chose this one, I believe, for May? Is that right? June? May? April? I'm lost. But I do overall just think that this as a whole ended up working for me. Like the pace, the characters, the concept was just perfect timing and a very well told story. It is very short, and I think for what it was, I'm willing to say that it's my favorite book of the year so far. I had rated one thing higher than that this year, but it was a reread, and that was Jade City by Fonda Lee. Just so we're clear. Then question number 2 is the best sequel you've read so far this year, and this is actually like one of my most recently finished books, and I chose Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker. I do think it's interesting to have a sequel in a romance series that does follow the same couple, but I thought this one did it very well. We are in a completely different setting, and it is our couple just trying to figure out how to make like real life actually work. So if you're someone who doesn't like seeing them live their lives after they end up together, this probably isn't for you, but it really was for me. Not only do I love the couple in this series, but I also just really love like the supporting cast, and so yeah, I ended up really enjoying this one. The only thing my dog barks at is the mail people, like UPS, FedEx, and our actual mail person, and of course I always film around mail time, so hopefully he's done. Question number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and I put on this because I recently read the first book just in anticipation for the second book, and that is X's and O's by Amy Lee. I wasn't that interested in the first book, but I couldn't allow myself to read a sequel without reading the first book, and so yeah, I'm really excited to still try that one, especially after fairly enjoying a premise I didn't think I was going to. I have even higher hopes for this one. And question number 4, to kind of tie into that, is also a most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I just recently noticed that Diana Quincy has a new book coming out this year. It's like late September, and I love Diana Quincy. She's a historical romance author. This book is called The Duke Gets Desperate, I believe, and I think our main heroine like inherits a castle, but then there's a duke like occupying it who also thinks that it's his, and so it's gonna be a little bit hate to love, but I can't wait. Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment of the year, and my biggest disappointment is still The Thursday Murder Club, just because I feel like disappointment is different than like not enjoying it, because I had such high hopes for The Thursday Murder Club and really did not like it. That's my biggest disappointment. I love old people vibes, and it just did not deliver. And then question number 6 is your biggest surprise for the year, and I will gladly say The Lager Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Stradall. I don't have this right now because I actually lent it to my mom. I think she finished it and is now passing it on to my sister. I loved it so much that I was like, you guys need to read this. I would have considered this like one of the most random things that was sitting on my shelf, and I do think it's a little bit niche because we live in the area that it's referencing, so I don't know if like other people would enjoy it as much as I did, but yeah, that one gave the old people vibes that I wanted. Question number 7 is a new favorite author that you discovered this year or declared this year, and for me, I didn't have very many options. I have been reading through a lot of sequels and just reading through what I own in general, which means one, I purchase a lot of authors that I already know and love, and sequels are authors I've already read before. But this author I am happy to declare as a new favorite because I will be reading anything she comes out with in the future. I read both Kiss Her Once for Me and The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane very early on this year, and like I said, I will happily declare her as a new favorite. Question number 8 is your newest fictional crush, which I kind of struggle with. I'm not someone who really like frames my mindset that way. I feel like I don't get really a crush on characters very often, or I don't hyperfixate on characters very much. So I was just trying to think of like who the most out of like romance heroes that I've read this year would be like my type. And so I pulled Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca to talk about our main character Dex. I do think that Dex is kind of like a bit of a rake, if you will. He is very flirtatious, has been around the block. So I think a lot of people describe him as having a lot of sex appeal in general, although when he does get with our main character, he is very loyal. But also the thing about Dex is that he is just kind of like in general in this series, the men are kind of a little rough around the edges and also not ashamed to wear those kilts. So I'll say Dex. I don't really get crushes on people, but there we have it. Question number 9 is just your newest favorite character in general. And this might also still just be coming up because I read this one so recently. And I keep saying I love the old people vibe, but I'm pulling Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker again to mention, I believe his name is Roy. If I'm biffing that, I'm so sorry. I believe his name is Roy, the grumpy neighbor character. Essentially, these two move to a new area and they acquire a neighbor who is a crabby old man. And our main character, Calla, is just forced in a couple situations to have to deal with him. And I just think my heart softens towards him through the whole story. And like he has this hobby that's like a creative little hobby that when she discovers is just like so cute almost. And I don't know, I love the grumpy old man that someone can warm to. Then question number 10 is a book that made you cry. I don't think I've actually cried this year. I can never remember. So I just pulled something that I know is sad in general because it deals with loss of a loved one, loss of a partner, and that is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I mentioned a lot when I read this that I very much enjoyed that while this is such a heavy topic, there's also like very funny moments in this. So it's dealing with grief while also being just like still kind of rom-com-y. And yeah, this one sticks out fondly in my mind, but it is a very heavy topic. Then question number 11 to counteract that is a book that made you happy, and I again am answering with The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane, mostly because all I remember is how bad I wanted these two people to like finally touch and get together. It literally had me like fanning myself, screaming, crying, throwing up, you know, that feeling of just like, please, this is all I want. And so it's very satisfying. And question number 12 is a question that I don't have an answer for because I don't watch TV or movies much, and that is just your favorite book to film adaptation. And I don't think I've consumed any. So question number 13 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received acquired this year. And I actually did pull a book that I didn't buy myself. This was a gift to me from Danielle from Bookara. I have not acquired that many books this year, so I didn't have like a ton to choose from, but I will always happily choose a historical romance. I know some of y'all think that this is ugly, but I think this is gorgeous, and I pulled Duke Most Wicked by Lenora Bell. I love the gold with the red, and just the red in general made me very happy. When I first opened this package, I was like, oh, she's so pretty. And so still I'm excited to have this like in my hands. I think that it's gorgeous. And the final question, question 14, is what books do you need to read before the end of the year? And I didn't write down anything specific. I feel like there's nothing really pressing still on my shelves that I'm like, oh, I really like this specific book, need to get to this first. I'm just still in general with the collection, like this needs to get smaller. And so I would like to get to some of the books that I have, like quite a few books by the same author. For instance, I think I have 3 Pam Godwin books and I have yet to read a Pam Godwin. I need to work on some series, so I would like to continue through a series of Unfortunate Events because I have to read one before I can read another. What else? In general, the things that I'm thinking that I need to get to as soon as possible are anything that I need to like read one thing before I can read the next of that thing that's sitting on my shelf. So series, authors I own multiple of, or like just series I need to even restart. But yeah, that's all that like immediately comes to my mind. I haven't allowed myself to think of like things I'm excited for. I don't know. And so that's it. That's my freak out. I have a big thing coming the second half of the year, so I probably should be freaking out, but I'm doing okay. I have high hopes still for the second half of the year, but thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!